Now, one day she invited me to a party in honor of her brother. And I go to this party and I'm kind of like, where her brother at? Expecting to see someone who looks like her. And her brother was darker than me. So I was kind of like, oh, I didn't know that your brother was a whole like Senegalese sheikh looking dude. Which wasn't negative. It actually made me more excited and kind of interested to know more about her family dynamic. Some places celebrate Black music, Black foods, Black styles, and they still make being Black complicated. And if you're moving abroad, particularly if you're a Black person moving abroad, this contradiction matters. So disclaimer number 1. Everything I'm about to talk about comes from places I have spent real time in. I like these places, in some cases love them. I go back to them, and that is exactly why I think it's important to talk honestly about the contradictions that come with being Black, with being a person of African descent in them. Disclaimer 2, one thing I do want to be clear about is that the United States is one of the most obvious examples of a country that profits from Black culture while failing Black people. That's not controversial to me. But this channel is not about diagnosing America. It is about evaluating life beyond it, and that's why I'm not touching on the US as a topic. When I say Black or Blackness, what I mean is people of African descent and the cultures, the foods, the music, etc., that comes from them. Whether that is Africans on the continent or straight from the continent, Caribbean people, Afro-Latinos, Afro-Arabs. These are different histories and distinct cultural experiences, of course, but there are often common roots and commonalities, especially when we talk about commonalities and experiences once you leave your home base. I think the UK is interesting because Black culture is everywhere, particularly in London. That's what I got the most experience with. It's mainstream, it's cool, it shapes music, fashion, language. But when it comes to power, to protection, and who's really allowed to belong without friction, that's where it starts to get thin. So some examples that I think about in the UK are obviously Meghan Markle and her experience as a person that has some African ancestry and being in the United Kingdom. I think about the experiences of Black British actors who often have to go to the US in order to make it, because there isn't enough supportive space for Black creatives, for instance, on that side of the pond. When I think about communities on the ground as well, I think I would be remiss if I don't talk about colorism and how there's almost an erasure of Black women in the UK. It's a weird kind of thing to talk about. I have family there, and I just hear weird conversations that are like 2 Black British men talking about a woman and saying, oh, she was fit, she was mixed. Is mixed shorthand for beautiful? Why does that matter so much to you? And this is like a man who is so dark, all you see is teeth and eyes. There is something about the place that is not wholly protective of and supportive of being Black. And I think that that's why it manifests in conversations and comments like that kind of comment that I saw. It manifests in the most popular music stars are not people of African descent or people who are of more mixed heritage and background or ethnically ambiguous heritage and background than unambiguously Black people. And this is even for music genres that like originate from communities of African descent. So I think being visible in the UK is a big part of Black identity. It's visible, particularly in London. But being visible is not the same thing as being secure in your Blackness. And I don't consider London. I came to say shorthand, like this one city. There are Black people all over the UK, but I don't know that I would say that the UK's representation of Blackness is one that's fully secure in its Blackness. So the next country I'm going to talk about is Portugal. Portugal is a place that I genuinely love. I have said before that I got to Portugal, and the first thought that came to my mind was, girl, you studied the wrong romance language. And I started thinking about all the good times that could have been had I taken Portuguese 101 instead of Spanish and M. However, at the same time, I have found when interacting with Portuguese folk that there are a lot of anti-Brazilian comments there than I would have expected. And it doesn't feel like it is disconnected from race, and it can't be disconnected from race to me because I know that Brazil's a majority Black country. And then I think about Angola and Portugal's experience with Angola. The Angolan War for Independence was, all wars are brutal, but this war was brutal. It was the length of it, the way that it was carried out, it reminds me of Algeria's war for independence and how long and drawn out and brutal that war was. And the way empire is remembered or not remembered, all of that is still subtly under the surface, right? I think of Portugal as a place that can feel warm, and it is warm, and I love it. Again, I love being there. I love how I feel when I'm there. I love the food. I love so many things. But like, you can be at one place but still be carrying the coldness underneath from the baggage of these experiences that haven't fully been fleshed out. When I think about some of the weirdest experiences that I've had, the coldest ones that I've had in Portugal, they were with Afro-Brazilians. But it was usually in a waitstaff context. And I, after these experiences, was often left wondering if they were treating me with coldness, but being clearly nicer and warmer to white patrons because of something I did or because of something I wasn't picking up on culturally. I can't put my finger on it, and it's because, I don't understand how those communities are structured, and I would need to learn more about how Afro-Portuguese people feel about life in Portugal and what it's like for them on a day-to-day basis. But that's something that I feel like isn't covered as much. I, as a foreigner, I don't speak Portuguese. No parlo Portuguese. I hope I said that right. I'm just going to navigate life there, or my existence there, very differently from someone who came from Brazil, or who came from Angola, who came from Cape Verde, and understands gradations in identity and all those pieces. So more for me to think about, but definitely Portugal is one of those places that does not seem to have fully contended with its relationship to Blackness. And the last country I'm going to talk about is Morocco. Now, North Africa and its relationship to Blackness is always a topic for debate. There was the latest African Cup controversy that highlights this. So maybe it's not a surprise that a North African country is on this list. I think with Morocco and with, I guess, all of the North African countries, there's this duality of being African, right? North Africa is part of Africa, but not considering itself Black and the tensions that come from that. So for Morocco specifically, for instance, there's Gnawa music. Now, Gnawa is Black music. And what I mean is that it is a genre created from the people of Black African descent from there. It is a genre that the country is proud of. There's a Gnawa Music Festival. There's so many things around this music. But Black Moroccans still have this weird position in society that I cannot ignore. I have been there several times. So I want to tell the story of my host mom. This woman would be what we in the States would probably say is a light-skinned Black woman, but she clearly chemically relaxed her hair. It was very clear to me that she and we were using the same range of products, okay? Now, one day she invited me to a party in honor of her brother. And I go to this party and I'm kind of like, where her brother at? Expecting to see someone who looks like her. And her brother was darker than me. So I was kind of like, oh, I didn't know that your brother was a whole like Senegalese sheikh looking dude, which wasn't negative. It actually made me more excited and kind of interested to know more about her family dynamic. And I know already from my own family and experiences that Black families can have a whole range of colors within them. But it was just more surprising because of the way that my host mom acted and because of how everybody else knew that was my brother. And I was the one that was like, oh, where you at? Where you at? Let me say hello. So there was another time when we were watching TV. I was there in Morocco at this time to study the Moroccan dialect of Arabic. And I'm watching TV and I'm hearing what sounds like Moroccan Arabic, but I don't understand not even a word of it, which is strange, right? And I'm like, why can't, what dialect is this? A dialect of a dialect? Like, where do they speak this? And her husband tells me, oh, that's my wife's language. So it's Amazigh or Tamazight, which are the indigenous people, the language of the indigenous people to North Africa. North Africa is not indigenously Arab. And it clicks for me, oh, so you African. And, when I think about this, she was not super forthcoming about her identity. She talked about herself and presented herself as if she was Arab. And it was only her husband who was giving us these pieces of clarity. She was sort of like, yeah, that's my brother. And like, yeah, that's my like native language, but let's change the channel and let's go to M3 or M4, whatever the Moroccan Arabic language channel was, and we kept it moving. So I think about how her behavior was not unlike that of other more, I don't want to say more African descent Moroccans that I met, who just didn't seem at ease with their identity. Now, Morocco is a complicated place because there are Amazigh or Tamazight tribes, there are Arab tribes, there are people who say we're all a mix of everything. There are people who say we're Arab. There are people who say, no, we are the indigenous people and we need to be able to speak our language and express our culture. So I don't want to essentialize things, but I do say, and I do feel that based on my experiences there personally, the experiences of African students that have been shared with me, and then my observations and interactions with Moroccans, like I said, who would be people who we would say were Black if they were in the US, that Morocco has not dealt with and fully crystallized on its position to Blackness and in embracing the Black African aspects of its heritage. So basically, I saw in Morocco how Blackness was celebrated in terms of facets of Black culture, music, aesthetics, but it was just much less comfortably acknowledged when it came to people. So there you have it. A country can love Black culture and still struggle with how it views its Black peoples and its connections to Blackness. You can be celebrated in music, copied in fashion, centered in food, and still feel uncertain when it comes to your dignity, your protection, and your belonging. And that doesn't mean that these places I have listed, or any other place for that matter, is bad. It means that moving abroad doesn't magically remove race. It just changes how it shows up. And that's such an important thing to remember and to keep in mind as you progress through your move abroad journey. So if you're thinking about leaving, the question isn't just, is there Black culture there or are there Black people there? But the question is, what happens to Black people when things get uncomfortable? How's that community looking? Who's defended? Who's dismissed? Who's allowed to be complex? because being visible isn't the same thing as being secure. And enjoying a place doesn't mean ignoring its contradictions. You're allowed to love a country and look at it clearly. In fact, I think that is the most respectful way to move through the world and to move to another place. If you have contemplated questions like these, if you are in one of the countries I've named or in another that is still wrestling or has still leaves unaddressed its relationship with its Black identity, I'd love to hear your thoughts and your experiences in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.